my time. Is
I
Lucita
wasn't
there?
prepared today for hosting. I wasn't given a leave. Yeah. It's Noel who was to give me a guide. Noel, I don't know who was to do the hosting. But anyway,
Sorry,
let's
is
have Dr.
Lucita
Lucita.
there?
Yes, yes. She's there. Sorry. Forgot.
Nimeshangaa leo hakuna Lucita.
Ah, yeah. Okay, let's go on.
Morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, everyone.
Good morning.
A beautiful Monday morning as it is. Today, we like to do something that is titled By the Lakeside Kisumu. By the Lakeside Kisumu, under the rustling trees, they sway each side by side. The sun descends, casting its golden ray. The waters are listening. It's a serene view. Kisumu's spirit. Kisumu, the fishermen are casting their nets with precision. You see, they have dreams that linger far above the horizons. Bwana Omera is how they call each other. It's just beautiful. Kisumu is beautiful. The children are giggling along the sandy edge, their footprints marked with memories that they played. These are joyful splashes. It's like a cooling wave. Kisumu, my city. The aroma of fish. They call it samak or omputa or fish. The canoes are drifting gently. It's a new dawn. You see, those canoes have been crafted by good, gifted hands. You see, they know no sorrow. By the lakeside Kisumu, you will find hope. You see, the merchants are trading. They have lanterns that glow. The cultural colors are vibrant. A whole vibe. Kisumu, my city. Kisumu, how I love you. Kisumu, how I watch for you. Kisumu, my city. Thank you.
Thank you. No wonder. And you told me earlier that today we have something from Kisumu. Okay. What a good day. Yeah, I'll be in Kisumu on Friday afternoon. No, on Thursday afternoon. And I should meet some Power Monday people there. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome Odhiambo to introduce the guest.
Good morning once again. Thank you, Lucita. You're making me feel so nostalgic. Now about when I talk about the beautiful lake and the city. But that's another story for another day. For now, I'll introduce our speaker, who is Loise Njeri Muriithi. She was a CPA Kenya, CIFA, and she's a counseling psychiatrist and a trauma healing advocate. She's a founder and lead counselor at the Triumph Crest Wellness Harbor. She's a leadership coach specializing in healing from trauma, be it childhood, relational, or workplace trauma. And she's also a mental health advocate as a leader who experienced burnout, now teaching sustainable leadership. And she's also a divorce recovery coach, having gone through the experience and then supported groups in the divorce care and single and parenting program. In short, she has a very long CV, but in short, she is a counseling psychologist and trauma healing advocate dedicated to helping individuals rebuild their lives, especially after divorce, with strength, clarity, and renewed purpose. She struggles with the emotional pain of losing the relationship she thought would last forever. Her passion comes from her own journey with an autoimmune condition called fibromyalgia as a result of the unresolved trauma. She is also a therapist and burnout survivor, teaching leaders to prioritize well-being without sacrificing success. The rest of her story, she will tell us. But for now, let me introduce her, and Karibu Sana. Let us, we all look forward to hearing from you, Loise. Thank you.
Oh, asante sana Odhiambo Olale. It feels nice to be introduced, and actually I am on this journey because I have felt it, and that is what made me feel that I need to hold someone's hand. I see Mary Njiru's hand is open. Mary, you want to say something?
No, I think we can just move on. Then anybody with a question can put in the chat for now.
All right, thank you. Thank you, OPP. And it is interesting that today when we are talking about resilience and change, I had to make a last minute change on the venue where I was to do the webinar. And so I've really struggled with fixing the lights. I don't know, OPP, are you able to see me?
I can see you very clear, yes?
Thank you, thank you.
Better than before.
Oh, thank you. I can see that it decided that it has to be a practical session where I have to demonstrate that I can be resilient.
Resilient, yeah. You know,
Yeah,
we long time ago, must be 2 years now since we last Monday meet and greet.
I agree. I've dropped off some years, and that's what we want to see today, how we can do that, all of us. And so today we have a very interesting, let me share the screen so that we can move together. One moment. As I organize my house here, I'd like us to share if you relate with this topic. Is there a time that you struggled with change? Give us a thumbs up if you have. Give us a thumbs down if you haven't. Yeah, I'm watching to see. All right. Yeah, keep the responses coming. OPP are now able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. You're saying people can say if they
relate. Have they struggled with change at any point? Yeah, has change been a struggle at any particular point? If you relate, give us a thumbs up.
Changing diapers.
Yes, changing diapers, getting married, getting a baby, losing a loved one, losing a friend, gaining a friend, yeah, having to change locations.
Yeah, so many people agree.
Kawangware, and then you got blessed, you moved to Lavington, that is also change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can see a number of us relate. That means we are having the right topic. This very important season where this is our mental wellness month, where we create awareness. And so we want to discuss today how that change affects us and how our reaction should be. Because naturally, when we experience change, there's a tendency to resist, to maintain the status quo. But we are actually supposed to look for ways to adapt, to bend, and to remain standing even after the change, whether it is a positive change or it is a negative change. And so our objective today in our discussion is, number one, to understand why we resist change. Why is it natural to resist change? And then the second one will be to explore how change affects our mental health. Again, to discover strategies to build resilience. And so since we have said that change is something that is familiar with us, I would like you to think of your personal story, even as we walk the journey. Think of ways that you have handled change and how it left you feeling, where it left you at, and are there permanent marks, be it scars or flowers, that change left on you? So by the end of this discussion, we will be better at handling change and also at realizing that change is a constant. So sometimes we find ourselves at crossroads, especially when we think about change or when we find ourselves at a place where we have to accept change. As you have heard from the introduction, at one point I went through divorce, and it reached a point that I realized I could not sustain the life that I was living. And among the things that I had to rethink was housing. And now where I was living was a nice place, tarmac right from the gates. And it reached a point that I had to rethink and consider if I'm going to sink in debt because I want to maintain that, or I need to make adjustments for me to live a sustainable life. And I had to move to a different neighborhood where I didn't know that we still have very bad roads. I thought in Nairobi we have potholes. Now, these were not just potholes. So number one, roads were a challenge. Electricity was another issue. We had not seen that in that particular area. So it was a total, I don't even want to call it a 180-degree because that was a direct opposite of whatever I was used to. And you can imagine having to prepare the children for that. And so as we are discussing today, I want you to think about your journey and see where the crossroads left you at. Were you left cracked? Were you left standing at the end of it all? And so we begin our discussion by understanding change. Now, just like a chick that is about to hatch, change ushers us into a new life where we have to experience things that we have not experienced before. And so this comes with anxiety. It comes with sometimes excitement. Sometimes it comes with uncertainty. And at times you're actually in denial. However, since change, actually we said the only constant thing in life is change. And that means we have to keep ourselves equipped for us to handle change, whether it is a planned change or it is an unplanned change, whether it is in our personal lives, in our professional lives or career, whether it is a global issue like what happened in the 2019, 2020, 2021 season. We just have to prepare ourselves to handle change. We cannot prepare adequately for change, but we can prepare ourselves to handle change, because just like this chick, when it is time to hatch, there is nothing that can be done to stop the process. And therefore, it is good for us to realize also, we cannot change the processes that lead to change or the circumstances that lead to change. Therefore, as we think about this today, I also want us to understand resistance. Why do we resist? And mind you, resistance sometimes we don't even have to plan to be resistant. It is the natural reaction to change, because we are created to be comfortable with what we are used to. And so thinking of adjusting that state of uncertainty, it creates fear in our minds that tells our minds that there is a risk and therefore we are not safe. And that is what results to resistance. And so as we are looking at resistance today, I would like to see on the chart time that you resisted change. And when we talk about resistance, we are thinking about you felt that it was difficult for you to adapt to change. So the reaction could have been, maybe you struggled with, let me say, using now my own case, I struggled with the denial that I really have to change my environment. I also struggled with acceptance that, because you see now moving to a new environment means new friends, new routines and all. So I would like you to just share with us on the chat, time that you found yourself, you don't have to put a full statement. You can just mention whether it is change in job, change in relationships, change in family. Family, I mean, it could be an additional baby. Doesn't have to be negative, but just put on the charts one time that you had to think of ways of navigating change. So it could have been a time that you really struggled with it. So I'll be checking on that as we continue the discussion. So as I was saying, we are wired to feel safe, and we only feel safe when things are predictable, and that's why we find that change feels threatening. And as much as resistance is natural, the reason why we have to manage it is because it can hinder our growth. And that means that if we do not handle if we do not handle change from a point of acceptance, we find ourselves unable to move. And we will see that as we continue discussing. And then again, change can also lead to stress. It can lead to stagnation or burnout. As Mr. Olale was reading my introduction, he mentioned that at some point I suffered burnouts. And the reason that I suffered the burnout is because I struggled with adapting. And when we recognize that we are struggling with the change, that is the point that we start managing our change so that we can move from resistance to resilience. However, developing resilience is the antidote that helps us to move in the right direction. So as we are thinking about the reasons why we resist change, I would like us to consider the factors that make us resist change. We have said it is a natural reaction. So it's not something that we plan to resist. It is a natural reaction that is because our brain prefers routine. And therefore, any form of change, it disrupts that routine, and therefore we feel threatened. Then secondly, it is a place where we find ourselves in an unknown or an unfamiliar state. And therefore, this transition, it makes us be in that place where we have to feel quite uncertain until over time it becomes familiar. For example, I remember a few years ago when the AI talk began, many of us felt the AI will take our job. Actually, it is still happening in some areas. I remember there was a time that I was talking to someone whom I needed, he was actually a designer. And so as we were talking, I explained to him that I had done some little research on the colors that I wanted for my branding, on the style and everything. And the first thing he said was, it is so unfortunate that this AI is taking our jobs. And you know, that is, I think that is felt across. As an accountant, sometimes we have felt that like someday we might not even have jobs because nowadays people can do their books using technology. And so we need to come to that place where we accept that moving or shifting to new technology, it is actually not supposed to be a threat. Yes, it is an unknown space, but it's not supposed to be a threat. It's supposed to be an enabler that will make us even do better. Sometimes we also resist change because we fear failure. Considering that this is a new territory, it comes with a sense of failing. How will I manage? As I change jobs, will I really be able to sustain myself in this new role? Will I be able to handle the responsibilities that it comes with it, both in terms of managing those who will be reporting to me, handling the new responsibilities? I'm getting married. With this high rate of divorce, will my marriage stand? With this parenting of teenagers, because also as children change, we also have to change. How will I handle my teens? What kind of a parent will I become? There's also the fear of failure. There's also the sense of loss of control. Now, I'll start from the parenting aspect, thinking of now your child is growing and you need to release this child to the university. And at this point, you cannot control where this child spends their time, how they do things, because they are no longer in your hands. And the transition has come. So there is the loss of safety. And then also there are the past traumas, where in the past, change did not treat you so kindly. And therefore, when you think of changing anything, you feel terrified about it. However, it doesn't have to always be like that. So let us look at signs that tell us that we are resistant to change. The first thing is procrastination. So we find ourselves avoiding to take up new assignments or taking up the steps that we need to take. So you keep saying, I'll do it tomorrow. For example, when it comes to looking for a house, you need to change your environment for one reason or another. You need to change the place where you stay, and you keep pushing the house hunts. And every day you feel, let me just do it tomorrow. So you avoid dealing with it. Or maybe you have suffered loss and you know very well that you need to go for therapy. But every time you think about it, you say, I can do it tomorrow. So procrastination is an indicator that you could be resisting change. And then there's also withdrawal or absenteeism. So at the time that you're supposed to do something, you realize that you don't want to be there. You don't want to do it. If it is going to work, when the change is supposed to be effected, that is the day that you remember that you had a pending assignment or appointment with the doctor. You don't want to be involved. You're just wishing that thing will just go. Or if it is a transition that is supposed to happen, maybe to a new program, you want to be busy with something else. You don't want to be present in the process. You also experience low or negative energy. You just don't feel like doing it. And it requires a push for you to be able to do it. So you realize all this is not something that you sit and say, I am going to procrastinate, or I'm going to switch my energy to a low gear. It is just a natural feeling. And all this, the results to low productivity. Because you're resisting the change, you're procrastinating, you're not present, your energy levels are low. So it also affects your productivity in every other aspect. You also delay decision-making because you're afraid. And so you don't want to get that point of saying, yeah, I just have to face this and I have to do it. So what is the impact of the resistance on our mental well-being? On this, I want us to consider the 5 stages of burnout, where we think of a matchstick. So at the beginning, you are dissatisfied, but it is subtle. And then since you don't pay attention to it, it moves to unconscious disregard. So you realize the flame is slowly going out. Remember, we said there's an impact on the productivity. And because you have to survive, it transitions to conscious numbing, where you know, I'm supposed to do it, but since it feels very difficult, I can numb by avoidance. And then after that, because this has not been dealt with, it moves now to anxious exhaustion, where you are truly feeling the weight, but you're still stuck. You're still procrastinating. You're not taking action. And then after that, now it moves to full-blown trauma. So by the time it becomes a full-blown trauma, it means you're totally struggling. And at this time, with trauma comes with negative effects on your well-being. Like I mentioned, at one point I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And fibromyalgia is an autoimmune condition, which came because, among other reasons, I had held on to some things for too long. And I was not ready to adapt, and I was not ready to let go at the time that I was supposed to. So I ended up holding on to pain for too long because I was afraid of change. I was afraid of a new frame of thinking. I was afraid of a new phase of life. And therefore, that is why we need to handle this. So unchecked resistance can affect our sleep. So we end up not sleeping well. And when we don't sleep well, we are definitely not productive. Our thought patterns are affected. We are unable to focus. We have strained relationships on all aspects. So strained relationships with friends, strained relationships with spouses and children, with siblings, strained relationships, even at the workplace, because you're struggling within you, you are not settled. And then there's a decision fatigue. We mentioned earlier that we delay in making decisions. And so we are unable to make progress, even in terms of decision making. And we have also mentioned about the low productivity. Now, it is very important for us to note that since resistance puts us in a place of stress, when we prolong stress, it leads to chronic stress, burnout, like we have discussed, anxiety disorders, and to some extent, it also results in autoimmune conditions. So research has shown that a number of autoimmune conditions have roots in unresolved issues. And so as we think about resistance and as we think about resilience, I'd like us to consider these 2 trees, a bamboo tree and an oak tree. There's a Japanese proverb that says that the bamboo bends, the bamboo that bends is stronger than the oak that resists. But when you look at that picture, the bamboo looks like it has no ability. It is thin, very thin, compared to the bamboo that has a very big trunk. And so when you look at this, we would think that the oak is better placed at facing change. However, when the storm comes, because the oak resists and it is rigid, it ends up cracking, and the moment it cracks, the tree is gone. However, when we think about what happens to a bamboo, the bamboo is pushed by the storm or by the wind, and it bends. However, after the storm has passed, it stands again. So the bamboo is able to adapt and get restored to wholeness. However, once the oak cracks, its life is done. So as we think about our lives, let's think of where change has left us. Did it leave us standing, or did it leave us cracked like it did to me? Yeah, because dealing with health conditions that we don't have to deal with, if only we handled, or if only we handled change well, it's something that is worth considering. So I don't know at this point, is there anything that comes to your mind that you think of as a situation that left you either standing or broken? I can see some of the changes that you have gone through is moving from single to married life. Where did that leave you? Did you bend to adjust to that new change, or did you crack? Crack, in this case, could be loss of identity, because you lost yourself when you transitioned to marriage. I can see Hannah Munyao says she experienced change in regard to changing jobs. How did the changing jobs affect you? Where did it leave you at? Were you able to adapt, or did it take away the time that you are spending with yourself, with your family? Loss of loved ones, where did it leave you? Have you managed to process the loss and bounced back, or have you been trapped in grief and you're unable to process it? David Ndolo talks of, when I first lost my plum bank job. Yeah, when job loss comes, where does that leave us? Those are just a few examples. We'll be reading some more as we continue. So, as you're thinking about this, my encouragement today is, by the end of this session, let's think of how we can stop fighting the storm, how we can stop fighting the change that will leave us cracked and bent, but instead we will bend and allow us to be flexible. Flexibility isn't weakness, but rather it is our greatest power to navigate the challenges that we have to face in life. We have already admitted that change is constant. It is not going anywhere. There is no point in our lives that we'll find ourselves in a place where we are not dealing with change. Therefore, in a few minutes, we are going to compare resilience versus resistance. So when we talk about resistance, what are we talking about? It is that state of thoughts where we find ourselves avoidant. We don't want to transition to what has happened, but instead we want to avoid that which has happened. We want to avoid that new software. We want to avoid making that very important life-saving decision. We want to avoid that which makes us fearful, like taking up a new job. We want to avoid that which stresses us. We want to maintain the status quo, and we end up remaining stagnated. That is why we have to think about resilience. And resilience is not about being unbreakable. So we are not resilient because we don't feel. We feel the pressure that comes with the change. And it is not being unaffected by stress. It is the capacity to recover from the difficulties that we face. Resilience entails flexibility, adaptability, and emotional agility. Remember, we said that change makes us feel threatened. It makes us feel unsafe. It makes us feel unstable. And therefore, we have to change our minds to allow for flexibility, to bend like the bamboo. We also have to allow ourselves to be adaptable to that which has happened. And then we also have to be emotionally agile, that we don't break. We'll do this by, number one, embracing the change and allowing ourselves to sway rather than fighting what we are feeling. Then we'll also need to learn how to cope constructively and grow stronger through the storm. So when we think about resilience, think about a tennis ball. A tennis ball hits the ground and bounce back. That is what we think about. That is what should come into our mind when we think about resilience. We will hit the ground, yes, but we should be able to bounce back after the storm, and we will be able to thrive. Resilience is not a skill that we are born with. It is a trait that we have to acquire. We have to learn to be resilient. We do not come with that setting. And the reason why we have to acquire it is because challenges will always come, which is part of the change that we are talking about. But we know that the challenges should not and do not define us, but our response defines us. How we attend and how we respond to the change, that is what defines us. So we should look at challenges as an opportunity to help us to grow deeper roots and to adapt and come back stronger. In my case, when I went through divorce, I took it as an opportunity to grow myself. And over time, that is what has brought me to my purpose. It's now this is my 11th year post-divorce. And over that period, I have been working consciously to see how I can live my purpose. Yes, the divorce happened. And yes, it felt painful. And yes, I was hoping that I would keep my life forever. My marriage forever. Actually, marriage was my childhood dream. You see, the way you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? My dream was one, to be a good mother and wife. And and I could not believe that that dream could get shattered. And by the way, I actually lost myself in the process of trying to keep the marriage. And that is why I have said I suffered from resistance. As much as at that point, I did not know that actually I was resisting. So I want us to look at the neuroscience of resilience. Why and how we develop resilience. So we have said that our brains read that change as a threat. And therefore, we have to train our brains to respond in an appropriate manner to that threat. And a few examples on how we can do that. Number one, we can train our minds through mindfulness. For example, just taking 10 minutes of your day to meditate. Meditation can be, you can take a scripture, for those who are Christians, you can take a scripture that relates to what you're going through. So assuming that you're changing jobs and you're very, very anxious about it, you're wondering how it will be on that other side, since this is a place that you're not familiar, you can pick a scripture that you meditate on every day. You can also cognitively reframe. So instead of looking at it as a threat or a disaster, you affirm yourself that this is a challenge that you can manage. We have said that challenges come to strengthen our roots. So when we change how we look at the situation, instead of looking at it as a threat to us, we challenge ourselves to pick lessons and to learn so that we can manage our changes. We also think about neuroplasticity. I know that is a big word, but this is our brain's ability to adapt. This takes rewiring of our brains so that we can be able to think about the new experience as something doable, as something exciting. And because we are already afraid and we are already feeling as uncertain, we said resistance is natural, we can start from the point of gratitude. Think about, even if it is a 5% of something positive that can come with a new change. For example, a new software has been introduced in your organization. You can think of one thing that you think will work better when you're working with this software. Maybe, let's say, the processes will be reduced and therefore efficiency will be increased. Think of it also as a moment that you're given or an opportunity that you've been given to build a skill. For example, I've been an accountant for the better part of my years, and we started with the manual bookkeeping. So thinking of technology, as much as it might have felt scary at some points, it is an opportunity for me to learn a new skill in IT. Now, psychologically, how can we change from what we are feeling? That is a fixed mindset that tells us we cannot handle this, that makes us feel like a threat. We can adapt a growth mindset that makes us feel that we can handle this. And how can we handle this? Accepting that I cannot handle this yet, but I can build ways to increase my capacity to handle the change. That means I can learn. I can learn how to do it. So you allow your mind, instead of telling you I cannot handle it, you tell yourself, yes, I can learn how to do it. And studies have shown that students who have been taught to change to a growth mindset, they improve their grades by 14% under stress. So what this did to the students, it gave them the capacity to think that it is doable. It is possible for me to improve my grade. And it's really moving fast, but wow. So the second thing that I want us to look at when looking at the psychological part of it is the change curve. Automatically, when we are experiencing or when we face a change that we must change, including that change of office, the first thing that we think about is a shock. Let me jump to the curve. So when the shock comes to us, we feel that we do not want to adopt, we do not want this change, we do not need it. So the first reaction is rejection. That is where you say, this software, I cannot use it. I'm okay with my old ways of doing things. And then, because we have felt that it does not apply to you, you can get fixated and get stuck on that part. And then you can allow yourself to move further when you realize it is not going anyway, and you just say, okay, it won't work, and I'm going back to doing it my way. So you completely resist it and you go back to your old ways. Now, realize that rejection and resistance, they keep you fixated, they keep you stuck. However, you can allow yourself over time, because the change, we said change is constant and it is not going, and whatever brought the change will keep looking at you. So at some point, you allow yourself to accept that, yeah, it looks like it may work. Let me just try it. It might even be better than my old ways. This is why we said you look for, even if it is a 5% gain, that you will realize out of accepting the change. And then the success comes in committing to adopt the change, where you tell yourself, yeah, things are working better in this new place. I came to accept and love where I'm living now. As much as first it felt very difficult, I came to realize there's so much peace of mind in this new environment, which is far from the matatus of Nairobi, because it's more like a village setup. And so I started looking at the positive ways that I can adapt and I can start loving my environment. So we need now to have mind shifts on how we can move from resistance to resilience. So you have to start by being aware. Notice the areas in which you're resisting. Now, self-awareness, it makes it easy for us to think of what we need to adapt, and also to tap into the techniques that we can apply to, for us to be able to drive in our change. We have talked about the reframing from the fixed mindsets to the growth mindset. So instead of thinking of how impossible it is, shift it to what you can learn from the new experience. Yes, you have changed jobs, and this is a completely new environment. What can you learn from the new environment? So with that, you respond with the 3 R's. So number 1, we have started by recognizing the resistance. Number 2, we have reframed the perspective that it is not a threat, it is an opportunity for us to grow and learn. And then number 3, we respond with intention On the curve, we have seen the last stage that is talking about acceptance. So at the point of acceptance, we are purposeful to adapt to the new change. And then we can also shift by practicing mindfulness and being emotionally aware. The emotional awareness will come if we are in touch with what we are feeling. So for example, we can do the breathing exercises, which help us to be grounded and to be present. When Dr. Edda was presenting last time, she took us through the breathing exercise. So if you missed that, please look at that video. You see how you can do the breathing exercises. The second thing that is very, very important for us is to journal. Journaling is very important. You can journal in the morning, you can journal in the evening, you can journal at any point of your day. It helps you be aware of where you are at. Then build a strong support network. This could be your peers, your friends, your mentors, your coaches, who you can share with the feelings that are coming with the change, and they can help you process or guide you on how to handle the change. And then don't be too hard on yourself. Focus on small wins. So break the change into manageable steps. Don't look at the big picture. Look at it from where you are at to the next step that you are able to take. And when you are able to take that step, celebrate yourself for it. And then even as we think about change, let us not forget about our self-care routines. Let us do our exercises, adopt our healthy diets, have healthy sleep patterns, so that even as these new roles come, they can find us grounded and strong to handle the change. Then we should also embrace continuous learning. Develop a new skill, go back to school, upskill yourself as much as you want our companies to do it. Do it for yourself, because through continuous learning, you become better equipped to handle any change that will come. Then you also need to align your purpose with your values, even as you transition in this change. This will make you feel energized in the middle of the storm. So the storm will be there, but when you have a purpose that you need to realize, it will help you to stick to it and to stay focused in it. Since here we are talking to leaders, it is also good for us as leaders to see how we can foster resilience in our workplaces. So we should foster transparent communication in our workplaces. Sometimes why change is resisted at the place of work is because people don't understand what you're introducing. So include people so that as you involve them, they will be more geared to support you in the transition phase. And then create a psychologically safe environment, allow people to express themselves and also to give feedback. Have flexible structures. Do not be too rigid that makes people feel they are being forced into things. And then create a model that supports resilience. For example, if as leaders, you know the challenges that are coming with the transition, be the first ones to own the struggle and also to create an opportunity for growth. So what are our key takeaways? I really wanted us to do this on the chat, but I can see I only have 3 minutes. However, please feel free to still share what is your takeaway so far from the discussion that we've had. And in this, I would like you to think, since change is part of life, and since we have agreed that we are not going to resist, please purpose that you're not just going to survive the change, you're going to thrive, you're going to become a better person. I am not the... actually, let me not put it in a negative way. Now, looking at my own life, I could have remained stuck at I was left or my marriage broke. But since I purposed to thrive, I am now shifting to the career that will see me enjoying life, because this is actually my passion, counseling psychology. So purpose that through the change that is coming, you're not going to sink. Instead of sinking, you're going to dive through it. And then, as much as resistance is natural, let us build the skill, the resilience skill. Be the bamboo that bends and survives. Do not stand like an oak that will stand steadfast and resist the change. So our actions for this week, this is an assignment, and please take it very, very seriously. I hope OPP can have a place where we can We can mark the assignments. Yeah, please identify one change to approach with curiosity this week. Just one in that particular space of change that you are in. The one who lost a loved one. What is one approach that you can apply to adapt to that change? The one who changed jobs. What is one approach that you can apply? And then once you have identified that one approach, please practice one resilience strategy. We have said we have to build resilience. It is a skill that we build. And so think about one that you're going to apply. And then I want us to remember that resilience is accepting a new reality. Even if it is less good than what you had before. Like in my case, it was a good place to be saying that I am married and to feel married. I didn't have to deal with the societal issues that come with divorce. So where I am, it might not be as good as what I would have wished. But remember, you accept your new reality and you create the good that you'd want to see in your life through the change that has to come. And so feel free to contact us. I will share this, the slides, so you'll be able to see how to contact us. At this point, I wish to say thank you for allowing me to do this. Please, OPP, give me 2 minutes for me to take responses and questions. Kindly, just 2 minutes.
Okay. So far, I've not seen any question, but I've loved the way you tried to summarize so that you reach the last slide. Oh, the other thing is put your contact there in
Yes.
the chat for further
Okay.
consultation. The third thing is you are also in the Power Monday WhatsApp group, and so people can always reach you there. You can also share the slides there. I like
Thank
your
you.
idea of having an avenue of submitting assignments. Maybe I'll need to think about that, how we can put it. Yes, but in general, let me say the following. What your session has reminded me that when I was growing up in one of my teachers said, "Don't be stiff, you'll break." Now that is always instilled in my mind. Don't be stiff, you'll break. Whenever I see when people are too stiff, I realize that something is not going to be right. The other thing is along the way, I read this book called Who Moved My Cheese? And there is something that always keeps popping in my mind. They keep moving the cheese. Smell the cheese often. They keep moving the cheese. Yeah. So we must remember that nothing is constant. They keep moving the cheese. If you don't change, you'll be extinct. Then it also reminded me that during COVID, we were running some sessions for marriage preparation at St. Paul's. And we were stuck when they declared that no more physical meetings. And I was wondering how we do it. I was the chairman. And so one of the candidates came to tell me, no, we need to move on. I asked, how do we move on? And I started asking the other participants where they are. Then the guy told me, we don't know whether their relationship didn't work out. We must move on. And that is how this concept of Zoom came in, and we started running classes on Zoom, and then it boiled down to also Power Monday being on Zoom, and it's been fantastic. So changes can be really great. Today we had like 100 people. That is the maximum capacity. By the way, for people who want to partner with us for Power Monday so that we can increase this capacity, you are very much welcome. And then it also reminded me, these are always the formulas that I use. I use them whenever I'm experiencing any change or going through anything that is challenging. I remember the statement from Apostle Paul, St. Paul. He says, "For it is when I'm weak that I'm strong." I love that. All the time when I'm going through anything that is tough, I remember you said you can pick a scripture and meditate on it. For it is when I'm weak that I'm strong. Then I always say troubles come not to trouble us, but to train us. So I've loved your session. It's a topic I relate with. I relate with this change thing, and currently doing organization psychology, business psychology, and change is always part of growth. So thank you very much. we may not have all the time, but what you've done is wonderful. As I call, you've not put your, have you put your number there in the chat? Yeah,
Yes,
put your,
I have.
okay.
I have. Yes.
I've called, as I call for Dr. Melvin to give a vote of thanks, I will call once more for support. I want to thank and appreciate people who are logging in from far and behind. There are people who are logging in, for example, from Nigeria, you see, and that is 2 hours earlier, meaning they are logging in at 5, waking up to praise this. There are people logging in from US, and some of them it's midnight, some of them it's past midnight. It's quite interesting and humbling. So let's keep doing this, and we can always follow also on YouTube thereafter. We always post them by Wednesday, and a link there. The other thing is we are having that charity activity on Saturday. These are children that are picked from the streets, reclaimed by Sisters of Charity, Sisters of Mercy, the Precious Blood family. You know about the Precious Blood in Kawangware. But now this is the children's family section where they pick children from the streets and bring them in. They rely on people like us, like me and you, to support them and keep these people on keep them on in school, and also keep them in keep them fed. So come in, support with anything little that you can, whether it's $1, whether it's $10, $20, 2,000 shillings. Buy a bag of rice, whatever. We'll be able to appreciate as we go there on Saturday afternoon, and we'll be also interacting with them and mentoring them. Let me call Dr. Melvin. Melvin, come on.
Right, OPP. On behalf of the Power Monday board, I really want to thank all the participants for showing up today in very large numbers. We were maxed out. We had people from Nigeria and some from Canada joining us today. And they were here just because Power Monday comes every Monday without fail, except when it's a public holiday in Kenya. So for this, we must thank the people in the background. That is Antonia Mutunga, Lady Noel, Dan Olale, and yourself, OPP. But this morning, I have some special thanks for our wonderful speaker, Loise. She has enabled us to understand the process of change and how we can adapt and how we can be resilient so well by just telling us her own lived experience, her own story about going through change. Now, my take home was that one has to reframe whatever situation you're in. One has to use your values in that situation as you transition to the next stage. Because an event is something which takes place at a given moment in time, but your response to it will determine where you're going with that experience. So today has been a wonderful day. We all of us want to get in touch with Loise Muriithi again. So I would encourage us to reach out to her on the Power Monday WhatsApp group. So once again, thank you everybody on this call for being here this morning, and especially Loise Muriithi for enriching us and helping us to upskill our ability to be resilient and to handle change. Over to you, OPP.
Thank you very much. I'm happy and grateful for this opportunity, and I thank everyone who's been able to join. Thank you, people, even for those who are joining us on Saturday to do good to the society. Power Monday is doing good to you in one way or the other. it's also a good thing to also do good to others through this. So we welcome all the support that you are giving and into this charity initiative. And at this point in time, I'd like to just also invite us for next week. We will have a new experience with another gentleman. We enjoyed his talk here, and we will be learning why things go wrong sometimes when they go wrong. When we are building, whether you are building your home in the village or building in town, whether you're building in New York or you've hired somebody or you are involved in some school project, what are some of the things you need to take care of? The bad, the good, the ugly in construction. And we will be having an architect speaking to us as we close the month of May, and we keep bringing you the best. Otherwise, my name is Otieno Paul Peter. I'm always your host and happy to be here with you. And we look forward to meeting again and again. For just for you to know, this platform is sponsored by ICT Gurus, and it's hosted by Live Your Dream. And ours is to ensure that you are able to grow and live your dream. And we are happy that you honor us with your time early in the morning, which is part of change, I know, to many of you, because many of us have resisted the Monday, and and now we've been able to embrace that change and continue to move on. Thank you all.